Good morning. There's a buzz in the air. Welcome to First Parish in Milton. My name is Leslie McPherson-Artinian, and I'm a member of the worship committee. First Parish is a vibrant, welcoming congregation that welcomes all people to grow into deep faith and take bold action. We are so glad you're here with us. This sanctuary is made holy by your presence. If you're joining us for the first time, please take a welcome packet from the pew rack. There's information about our services and our child care. If you fill out the yellow card inside the packet and drop it in the offering plate, you'll receive our weekly email, which will help you to get to know us better. The greeters and ushers in the back, we have Tracy Robinson and somebody. Just Tracy. Okay, Tracy is wearing a colorful name tag, and she'll be standing by the door after worship is over. You can see her after church, or me, and we can walk you to social hour or answer your questions. We strive to make our worship experience accessible to people of all ages and abilities. The welcome card in your pew provides information, or you can speak with us. The work of living our faith is done both in and out of worship, so I draw your attention to the printed announcements that came with your order of worship. These announcements are important news of the community, so please take a look. Extending a generous welcome is a spiritual practice. I invite all to extend that welcome to your neighbors by taking a few minutes to greet them.
Just now that you're settled, I'm going to ask you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our first hymn, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Let's sing this song as if we mean it. Will light our chalice this morning. And let's say together the call to worship. Come, let us gather. We gather to celebrate the sacred within and among us. We come to seek spiritual growth and understanding. We strive to practice acceptance, forgiveness, and love. Together, we work to build a world with justice and compassion. Come, let us gather together. I have heard what the talkers were talking, the talk of the beginning and the end, but I do not talk of the beginning or the end. There was never any more inception than there is now, nor any more youth or age than there is now, and I will never be any more perfection than there is now, nor any more heaven or hell than there is now. Urge and urge and urge, always the procreant urge of the world. I and this mystery. Here we stand. The Gospel according to Walt Whitman. This month in worship, we're considering ideas of heaven, exploring what our own faith and spiritual journeys have led us to believe about what happens after we die, and if it's good, exactly how good it might be. We've mentioned in both of the last 2 weeks that whether or not we believe in an afterlife, most of us agree that it's our responsibility to do all we can in this life to make it better, a little more heavenly, to be in this realm. One of the things we do as an act of faith and as part of building our faith is to put together care of the spirit with care of the body. We believe that while we don't know how much of who we are is tied up in these earthly bodies, or what will happen when we die, how we care for each other in body in this life matters to both body and spirit. One of the ways we do that is with our Whole Lives program, a program that includes education about sexuality and relationships in age-appropriate ways for folks based on their own development through our whole lives. Standing in for the inadequate education schools provide for healthy sexuality, this program is explicit. It's based in fact, and it allows youth to understand all of those things that too many of us ended up having to learn via utterly inaccurate and sometimes downright unsafe back channels. It's a life-saving program, my friends, and I have had this confirmed by youth who have returned and told me of times that recalling their OWL education got them out of some really tough spots. This year, we had 18 youth in our program for 8th and 9th graders, the largest class we've ever had. And so I'd like to invite all of those youth to come up and join me. Come on, don't be shy. This is also the most we've gotten to see of them in worship all year, so you gotta enjoy the moment. Come on up, all the way up. Is this everyone? No one being shy, staying in their seat? Okay. Our 3 teachers, Eric Miller, Laura Ryder, and Diana Wilson, are also invited to come forward. So I am pretty sure that our 3 teachers, I'm sure that these 3 would have been well appreciated by the parents among us, no matter what, because of their willingness and ability to have these conversations with our youth that are so very awkward to have as parents. But to do that with this particularly spirited and large group of young people, well, if Unitarian Universalists had saints, I'm pretty sure the 3 of you would be among them. And we'd be painting icons of your image and bowing to them and making offerings. I want to emphasize that their great service to these young people, to their families, does not excuse the parents from having conversations with their youth. It just means that they'll need to be more advanced now because they've already got the basics covered, right? So I have one very small token of appreciation to offer all of you. And this just stands in for the infinite gratitude that we have for you all. And we thought that after 9 months of Tuesday evenings being fully occupied, offering great reflection and education and opportunities for youth to develop themselves, that you might like to have a little bit of an escape. So we want to send you to the movies whenever you want to go. And, you know, it will be nothing compared to the slides that you get to show in OWL, but You can choose your own form of entertainment there. So thank you very much, Laura. Oops, did I give you that? Yes. Okay. Eric. And Diana. Now, Diana has a song to share with our youth to remind them of what they've learned. So I'd like to invite you. That might be
Laura, I'd like you to join me. Eric already refused. I think you'll recognize this tune. One, each person's gender is important to be safe in all you do. 3, please learn to be assertive. 4, to always have healthy relationships. 5, know exactly how babies are made. 6, we all want you to succeed. 7, and take your place in society. And that brings us back to me and you.
It is a time-honored tradition that we offer the youth completing the OWL program a memento to carry with them, to remind them in the times to come when they are faced with those decisions in which the wisdom of this program will be very, very important to them, that they can be reminded by having something physical to hold on to. So we offer them a little keychain with a cute little owl on it that they can carry with them wherever they go. And we have Josie Kuzno, Sawyer Flanagan, Grady Stote, Andrew Steele. Sorry, I was having a throat moment. Will McMillan, Robbie Silva, David Casaz, Colin Blackburn, and Ruby Baker-Poveromo. Thank you all. And I think that you all have a gift to offer as well, right? For the teachers. This they came up with on their own. I think evidence of success of the program. With all of the religious education that we offer, we invite our children and youth to be reminded of the precious gift that is the light inside of them and to carry it forward. And so as we thank our OWL participants and their teachers, and we send our young people off to their groups this morning, please rise in body or spirit and join in singing This Little Light of Mine.
An excerpt from Proof of Heaven by Dr. Eben Alexander. Alexander is an accomplished neuroscientist who believed that stories of near-death experiences were things that felt real, but were actually fantasies produced by brains under extreme stress. He had also lost faith in any greater being or force, like God, until he had his own near-death experience. This is an excerpt from his description of his experience during a 7-day coma. Something had appeared in the darkness. Turning slowly, it radiated fine filaments of white gold light. And as it did so, the darkness around me began to splinter and break apart. And then I heard a new sound, a living sound, like the richest, most complex, most beautiful piece of music you've ever heard. Growing in volume as a pure white light descended, it obliterated the monotonous mechanical pounding that, seemingly for eons, had been my only company up until then. The light got closer and closer, spinning around and generating those filaments of pure white light that I now saw were tinged here and there with hints of gold. Then, at the very center of the light, something else appeared. I focused my awareness hard, trying to figure out what it was. An opening. I was no longer looking at the slowly spinning light at all, but through it. The moment I understood this, I began to move up fast. There was a whooshing sound, and in a flash, I went through the opening and found myself in a completely new world. The strangest, most beautiful world I'd ever seen. Brilliant, vibrant, ecstatic, stunning. I could heap on one adjective after another to describe what this world looked and felt like, but they all fall short. I felt like I was being born, not reborn or born again, just born. Below me, there was countryside. It was green, lush, and earth-like. It was earth, but at the same time, it wasn't. It was like when your parents take you back to a place where you spent some years as a very young child. You don't know the place, or at least you think you don't, but as you look around, something pulls at you and you realize that part of yourself, a part way deep down, does remember the place after all and is rejoicing at being back again. Alexander goes on to describe the scene more, and then realizes that there is a beautiful girl with high cheekbones, golden brown tresses, and deep blue eyes standing next to him. Without any words, she spoke to me. The message went through me like a wind, and I instantly understood that it was true. I knew so in the same way that I knew that the world around us was real, was not some fantasy, passing and insubstantial. The message had 3 parts, and if I had to translate them into earthly language, I'd say they ran something like this. You are loved and cherished dearly forever. You have nothing to fear. There is nothing you can do wrong. The message flooded me with a vast and crazy sensation of relief. It was like being handed the rules to a game I'd been playing all my life without ever fully understanding it. Here ends the reading.
Let's go down, come on now. Let's
I'm sure that some of you know the old joke about Unitarian Universalists, that when we encounter a sign that has arrows pointing in two directions, one to heaven and another to a discussion about heaven, that we line up in droves for the discussion. So I thought the least I could do for this morning's discussion about heaven was refer to someone who tells a story of experiencing it, just to level things out a bit. Both Leslie McPherson Artinian and I have shared our agnosticism on the topic of heaven over the last couple of weeks, our desire to know something more about it or have some certainty coupled with the idea that we can't really know for sure. So I was surprised and amazed as I was researching this topic several months ago to run across a book which looked like it might have just what I needed to solve this conundrum once and for all. Boldly titled Proof of Heaven. Dr. Eben Alexander's book looked, well, like the Promised Land. Or it would have if I wasn't quite so cynical about over-promising titles in this age of social media, promising images and stories that will blow our minds, which turn out actually usually to be mildly amusing. My mind, I would say, has become shatterproof. In fact, sometimes I think my skepticism has grown even deeper roots in the face of that onslaught of promises of amazing things that are the best ever. In the case of proof of heaven, I have to say that I was skeptical is probably just a fancy way to say I was afraid. Afraid that this would either go the way of L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology and author of Dianetics, and start to talk about alien life forms colonizing the Earth, or it would go the old school route and lay claim to some mystical connection with an exclusive notion of heaven, with a faith in Jesus as the admission fee. What I found was a fascinating medical adventure, detailing the bizarre journey of the E. coli bacteria through Dr. Alexander's system and its valiant efforts to sabotage his brain as he lay in a coma for 7 days. His recovery from that week in a coma due to that infection, as doctors attempted to locate the source and figure out exactly how they might treat it, would be enough to help anyone along on their faith journey. It's that incredible, a miraculous survival. But interspersed with the story of what's happening with him medically and emotions that are going on in the family and friends around him is the story of what was happening in his inner state in that deep coma. And this is where his sojourn to heaven plays out. I'll let you read the book for full details of the adventure, which includes a realm called the Earthworm's Eye View and something called the Core, in which the episode Leslie read happens in a mystical land of pure beauty, where the air is filled with butterflies, and in fact that girl who speaks to him is standing on the wings of a butterfly as she gives him the good news. And while all of that description is evocative and amazing in its own way, what was equally amazing to me is the truth of the landscape he entered. While he describes it as not being dreamlike at all, but ultra-real, that's not the main point of his story. He doesn't claim that everyone will see the exact same landscape that he does. He's not about whether or not there are pearly great gates or streets paved with gold. What he wants us to understand is the deeper spiritual truth at the core of this journey. In the words of the blue-eyed girl standing on that butterfly's wing, "You are loved and cherished dearly forever. You have nothing to fear. There is nothing you can do wrong." Heaven, as Dr. Alexander realized it, was a place that revealed the deepest part of himself, in which he wasn't aware of his earthly self at all, or his identity, but introduced to a boundless love and possibility that flowed through him and through all beings. It turns out that a lot of what he experienced is rather common in descriptions of near-death experiences. Folks tend to speak of another realm, of encountering another being or beings, and of being led to some deeper truth. Almost always, that truth is something that offers healing for the central dilemma or suffering they are experiencing in this life. For him, it was the deep sense of being unwanted that had stayed with him, largely unconsciously, out of his experience of adoption, and then deepened with the fact that his birth family, once he found them, was reluctant to get to know him. Unlike others who have made claims about heaven, Dr. Alexander didn't end up becoming more partisan in his religious views, but rather deepened his awareness of connection with God and wanted to share that, not in sectarian terms. He's a church-going Christian, but his experience led him to see the different expressions of that faith as portals to the realm he had visited, no better or worse than those of other traditions. In fact, he could start to see how other traditions had exactly the same entry points. But his experience of going to this very core place that was both within him and had nothing to do with him at the same time, of experiencing the deep connection that comes from going deep inside his own spirit, is something that's described in many religious traditions. Two that immediately came to mind for me were the Gnostic teachings of Jesus, in which he tells his followers that the kingdom of God is within them, that if they bring forth what is within them from the riches that are their deepest selves, what is within them can save them, and that if they do not bring those things forth, what is within them could destroy them. Listening for the signs of that inner teacher being the critical turning point for a life of faith, a life of connection, a life of true meaning. And then there's the Buddhist teaching that all of this is actually an illusion, that the more we reach this enlightened plane, the deeper we go into the realms of our own consciousness that doesn't even belong to us, the more we connect with the source of consciousness itself, with the source of all, Brahman. And we enter into this place where there is no separation. and we become one and see all of the connections within and among us in a new way and learn to live differently, offering that light to all beings. Profound, profound truths, which I actually never had put together as ideas of heaven before reading this book. And here's the thing. You might be sick of hearing me say it, but I do believe it's true. We're at a time of reckoning for religious communities in our nation. It's no longer a given that churches are going to survive because they have for the last 3 centuries and might have some money in the bank, and because we can't imagine life without them. They are going to survive based on their ability to connect us ever more deeply to that truth that's beyond all truths, that truth within us, and to help us to live according to it, especially in the midst of this world where our survival becomes more and more optional, that living lives of peace and justice and fulfillment have as many opportunities for closed doors as open ones. We have this opportunity as we're gathered here in religious community to make something different, to make something new. And it will happen the more we're able to listen in this life, not because we had a near-death experience, but because we know that our survival is optional and absolutely compelling. So Alexander's book claims to offer proof of heaven, and he spends a fair amount of time talking neuroscience in the hope of proving his chops to scientists and acknowledging the validity of the skeptics' views. What he ends up with as proof of heaven, the claim he waits until the final line of the book to make clear, is himself. He is the proof of heaven. His story, his existence, his transformation through that near-death experience are his proof. And he doesn't suggest that there has to be a near-death experience in order to live into that truth. That the deepest part of us yearns to be known, is attempting to get our attention all of the time. The invitation to dwell in that place where we are loved and cherished dearly forever. The place where we have nothing to be afraid of. And because we know that love and we have abandoned that fear, there is nothing we can do wrong. The invitation to live with all of those things is with all of us, all the time. Here in church, we have the chance together every week as we gather in worship, every time we gather over coffee, every time we gather to have an annual meeting, every time we gather in small groups or in pairs to tell the deepest truth of our lives. We have an opportunity to clear away all of the layers that get in the way and dwell in the simple truth that we do belong to each other, that we have this love for each other, no matter what our petty annoyances or griefs or shortcomings. We have this chance to experience, for moments, if we're really lucky, in a sustained way, that vast and crazy sensation of relief that Dr. Alexander describes at knowing those truths. To understand the simple, basic, and oh so healing rules to this journey of life. Love all around, fear laid down, connection and possibility ours. So my friends, when we have the opportunity to choose a discussion or the real thing, I'd like to invite us to choose the real thing, to put our resources, our energy, and our vision into making it more and more real for more and more people. Let that be the mission of our church, and I guarantee that the size of our endowment, the state of our buildings, or even whether we have buildings at all, will no longer matter, because heaven will be ours. Amen. Please join me as we enter into prayer and singing Ubi Caritas. The words are printed in your order of worship. This is the invitation to realize that where love is, there we find God. Spirit of life, God of our hearts, we join in your infinite possibility as we gather in prayer. Help us to know that deepest part of ourselves in which we are loved dearly forever. When we are in our moments of great gladness, celebrating weddings and graduations, celebrating 10 years of equal marriage in Massachusetts, celebrating the gathering annually of this religious community to decide its future. And also when we are struggling with illnesses of mind, body, or spirit, when we are struggling with troubling news of those who are being used in as pawns for power around the world, those who are struggling for health, for well-being, for food, and for shelter. Deeply loved, always. Help us remember also the love that visits us in moments of celebration. Celebrate with David Morse, his 80th birthday this weekend. We celebrate the amazing journeys toward healing of both Ruth Hannon and Walt Hagenbuch this week. We celebrate the many movements of our lives that go beyond words to measure. And we give thanks for the moments that we have been able to abandon all fear, to remember that we have the ability to be brave in the face of all that might hold us back, to stand up for what we know to be true and right, to live more fully into who we are. And we pray that we might visit that realm in which there is nothing we can do wrong, in which we are willing to take the risks of things not going exactly our way in order to find a deeper truth that underlies it all. We give thanks for all of those who have taken that risk in making service pledges this year, who have extended themselves beyond their normal comfort zones to make new truths known to themselves and their community. And we pray for those who have been leading this congregation through these last several months, and also those who have been leaders in this congregation for the past many years, as we prepare to enter into our annual meeting. Help us to hold the gravity and the lightness of our being together, be visited by that power of connection that is ours to claim and to live always. In the name of all that is holy, amen. For those among us who made service pledges this year, who are willing to share to do so, and was eagerly taken up on the offer by June Scott, who has done more to live her faith in this past year than many of us have. So I invite her to come forward to share her testimony.
Morning. My name is June Scott, and my vocation is a nurse. And I wanted to have a show of hands of how many people here wear glasses or know someone that wears glasses, or someone blind or deafblind. Pretty much everybody. Well, my heart is singing for joy this morning. A miracle has happened. The light of understanding has shone upon my little pupil's hand, and behold, all things are changed. That's a quote from Anne Sullivan. As some of you may or may not know, I have a daughter with a visual impairment, macular degeneration. It's relatively rare, and she is slowly losing her sight, although she will not be totally blind, hopefully. But it is going to get worse, but cures are on the horizon. And I was challenged, I will say, by Parisa, and thought about the community service pledge. I took several forms, and they sat on my desk, thinking, could I really make a difference? Is one voice heard? And so I thought about it. And in January, I talked with a former colleague and told her this idea, and I said, we both work in large healthcare system, and what do our visually impaired patients get? Do they get large print packets when they come in through admitting? The answer, sadly, was no. Some of the diseases, do they get handouts about, accessible to them about can they read it, or, devices, magnifiers? And sadly, it was no. So I turned that anger that I was feeling that I'm a nurse, and how can I help my patients when I don't have the accessible devices for them? So I took a leap of faith, and I emailed the CEO of a large organization that I currently work for and held my breath. Would a large organization get back to me? In less than 24 hours, I got a lengthy email from the CEO. You're exactly right. Your observations are correct, and your advocacy is exemplary. And we need to do this work together. So since January, I have been asked to be on several committees within my organization, patient education, nursing policy and practice, to make a difference. And yes, we might even be getting magnifiers for our patients, which is yay. And I've been working with community leaders, advocacy groups, and are currently in the process of posting surveys for visually impaired people about where, since I'm a nurse, where do you go for your health? What barriers have met you between healthcare settings or even businesses? What's been good and what's been not so good? And how can I and how can other voices help you with that so you feel included and not alone? And I am also currently getting my certification in disability compliance. So on that end, I started to start my own business, and it is official now, and it's called Visual Vitality. It's run by nurses, and what we do is help healthcare settings, inpatient out, and businesses look at what they have for accessibility. Our primary focus is visual impairment, but we do other disabilities too. What do you have? What do you need to get done? Workshops, seminars, teaching communication skills, because it's very different when you're visually impaired and you just don't see people coming in the room, or people are flashing by you. It's scary sometimes, or you might fall, and help prevent fall preventions. So I'm happy to say that it's a work in progress, but our voices have been heard, and one voice does make a difference, and I'm proof of that. Let me end by saying, with a quote from Helen Keller, "When we do the best we can, we never know what miracle in our life or in the life of another. I am proof that one voice can make a difference, but more voices can do so more." So when you go about your lives, think about how disabled people, or when you get lack of access to something, what does that mean to you? So I hope you will extend your hand so future hands can be extended, and we can leave a legacy. Thank you.
The anthem the choir sings this morning is a song that's often known as the sort of second national anthem of Great Britain. And that is not the reason they're singing it this morning, but rather because it offers an image of what heaven might look like. And I imagine, what if we didn't have the colonial history, but we did have this idea that we could create a little piece of heaven on earth. What might it look like? As we offer our gifts this morning to the offering, I invite us to contemplate how our physical gifts offer something deeper for this spiritual community, and how we might make it real together. strength for this faith community, into comfort, food, and shelter for those in need. And may we be transformed by generosity. Our final hymn this morning is We'll Build a Land, number 121 in your gray hymnal. And in honor of the evolving understanding that we have and our whole lives classes that teach us that there is a whole spectrum of gender out there, one of the things congregations are experimenting with is replacing brothers and sisters with siblings in spirit. So as you sing, if you remember, try it out with siblings in spirit. Planning to join us for lunch and our annual meeting. And I send you forth to that meeting and to lunch to be together with the reminder, you are loved and cherished dearly forever. You have nothing to fear. There is nothing you can do wrong. Live as if it were true. Go in peace. Return with full hearts of love. Amen.